want to say before I continue along here and cover the bare basics that so many people are not understanding. When you're pulled over on a traffic stop, for example, and the officer asks you license and registration, please, what do? Do you give him your license and registration? If you are, have you thought about what a license is used for? Who has licenses? Hunters and fishermen, tradesmen, chiropractors, doctors, lawyers, all that sort of stuff. What are licenses all about? Licenses are designed to give you privileges from your government. So when you fork over that license, what have you just done? You've essentially self-incriminated yourself right off the bat. If you look at many of these simplified informations, the traffic tickets, etc., that these officers write, you'll note how they reference that the defendant handed over his license and identified himself, etc., etc. What you've done is you've already self-incriminated yourself. So what do when you're pulled over at a traffic stop? Because, of course, what you just did is going to be used against you. Remember how the Miranda warning reads, everything you say is going to be used against you. You can certainly bet that presenting a license is going to forge the presumption that you are engaged in a licensable activity. In other words, a form of commerce. Now, a lot of the Patriot mythology groups go over this sort of thing, how traffic relates to commerce. You've all heard of drug trafficking. If you don't think the definitions and words used in a courtroom are important, ask yourself, why do we have Webster's Dictionary and Common Vernacular that we all use every day? Then we have Black's Law Dictionary that has even more pages to it than a Webster's Dictionary does. Don't you think that perhaps that's the dictionary that's being used in the courtroom? And that if you say something and it actually means something else, that it will be used against you? Now, as I teach you guys this, I'm here to give you actual remedy, things that you can use. I'm not going to just sit here and teach you things and not give away the answers. I'm here to do that for you, so I'll give you a hint right now. The problem with me giving you the outright answers to all these riddles is that, number one, 99% of you aren't going to know how to handle yourselves when these things arise. So I'm trying to give some foundational ideas here to work with. And number two, when you do handle yourself wrong, you potentially get yourself involved in a case where you're a defendant, you will forge bad case law. Now, does that necessarily matter? Not really, because the case law applies only to that case. However, it will be used as an excuse to be used against you in the future by prosecutors and judges to try to get their way and convince you to agree with what they're doing. Now, on the assumption-presumption factor, as I said in my second video, this is what kills everyone. No one understands that when you go into a courtroom and answer the very first question presented, no matter what it is, not only have you forfeited your personam jurisdiction as mentioned in the second video, but bam, you've locked yourself into a controversy and that judge is smiling. He is happy because you have afforded him full judicial immunity. Whenever you enter a plea of guilty or not guilty, you have afforded the court full judicial immunity to do whatever they please. Whenever you enter an objection, look up the word objection in Black's Law Dictionary, you have afforded the judge full judicial immunity to decide as he pleases. Folks, do you think this is about due process? No. It comes from the federal level on down, all as junctures of the executive branch, based on administrative procedure. We have an illusion of due process. Remember, it is quasi-criminal, meaning it appears to be criminal but is not, so that we have all of these actual civil actions coming under the executive branch of the federal government, no matter what court you're in, all the way down to the local level, whereby they're just exercising their executive powers. Even though he's on the judicial branch, even though he's allegedly a judge, it all falls under an executive power structure. This way, it becomes an administrative procedure. Is there really due process? No. Why? Because the court can decide then and there exactly how they want to treat you. 10% of the time, maybe 20% of the time, in some friendly courts, they'll throw you a bone. They'll say, oh, he knows the Constitution, even though it's not applicable in traffic court or most any of the minor crimes. Let's find him innocent. Let's find him not guilty. Of course, remember, they don't find you innocent. They find you not guilty to carry the presumption of guilt at all times. And hold you not guilty without prejudice so that they can bring the case up again at some point in the future against you with the prosecutor bringing new charges against you. It is simply a bone being thrown to give you the illusion that you've been afforded due process when actually, no, the judge just decided in his own judicial discretion with complete immunity how he was going to handle you. You are the slave in the courtroom. You are captured by the courtroom. You will do as the judge says. You will answer to the prosecutor. Once you have engaged any aspect of their argument or entered a plea or shown up or presented that license to the cop, you're constantly screwing yourself. And as I mentioned in the second video, and I'm going to mention it repeatedly throughout my series, you whine and gripe to government to give you more privileges. When privileges are government granted, they are not freedoms. Privileges are granted by the government saying, yes, you have our permission to behave a certain way. You are granted this permission. We are your gods. Okay, you can do this. Is that the way you want to live, folks? Or do you want to say, F you, Mr. Government, I choose to be free. You are not my kings. You are not my gods. I am my own king. I am free. If so, why are you getting driver's licenses? Why are you getting birth certificates for your kids? Why are you getting social security numbers? All these government tie-in adhesion contracts. Yes, some courts will claim none of these things are contracts, but if you read the case law closely, there are different kinds of contracts express and implied, and when you're in a courtroom, you are forging constantly in a contract between two parties, whether you realize it or not. When you do not counter what the court and the prosecutor is doing effectively, you are presumed and assumed to be in complete agreement with it. If you remain silent, you are presumed and assumed to be in complete agreement with it. Here's a great example and an aspect of remedy that you can explore. What if you were drug into court based on an alleged warrant with an alleged accusatory instrument accompanying it, which should be attached to the warrant, and you stood there and said, I do not consent. The judge said, well, how do you plead? And you said, I do not consent. The judge said, well, what about these matters? Here, such and such, and so and so. And you said, I do not consent. What if you answered every single question they posed with a question in return? So that you were never, ever actually engaging the argument, but instead asking questions. What if it turns out you have no clue what they're talking about because they speak a completely different language based on Black's Law Dictionary, which you've never read or studied, and don't realize that the words they're using mean something completely different from what you think they mean? What do you suppose would happen? Well, I'll give you one example of what could happen. And lots of times you will not find remedy in the lower court. They're there to establish the facts, hoping you won't take it up on appeals, which again lose 90% of the time to find your answer in law. What has happened to one person who had 6 months of jail coming to him based on traffic-related issues is he simply stood before the judge and said, I do not consent. He said it over and over again until the judge asked him, well, sir, what are we going to do then? Isn't that interesting? We thought the judge was all-powerful. We thought the judge was God. Yet he, the defendant, chose not to consent to what was happening to him. And look what happened. Something to think about, huh, folks?